hello, church. I am Sam. I am the pastor that will be taking over for Mitch as he leaves. So in the coming weeks and months, we're going to get to know each other hopefully pretty well. I think it kind of goes without saying, but this is going to be challenging anytime we try to transition a pastoral role in any church. It's not without its challenges, but given the current state of the world, doing that in the midst of the pandemic is going to be more difficult than usual. So one of the things that I'm going to try to do is a lot of this in the short term. Obviously, getting together in any large group or even person to person is challenging right now. So I don't want to wait until we're able to do that before I start to introduce myself. And so I wanted to take just a few minutes and kind of give you the rundown of the basics of who I am, where I'm from, and then open it up for you guys to ask questions in the comments and so forth. Before we really get into that, though, I do want to take a minute and just say thanks to Mitch and to Cheryl, who have pastored and been shepherding this church for, I think, 14 years. So he's done that faithfully. I've known him just about that long. I owned a coffee shop that he used to come into and prep during the week. So I've gotten to know him over the years and enjoyed our conversations, and greatly appreciate the insight that he's been able to share, especially over the last few weeks, about Immanuel. And he doesn't have to do that. And just thank you to Mitch. Thank you, Mitch, for being willing to do that. So let's just jump right into it. What is my background? Well, I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. You may know my parents who are in the congregation. And they were not from Atlanta. They were actually from the Midwest. My mother's from Reynoldsburg, not too far away, and my father is from Indiana, just south of Bloomington. So I spent a lot of time growing up during the summers up in the Midwest, so the idea of coming here was not completely foreign. I attended Denison University in Granville, so I've been in Ohio basically since I was 19, so that's over more than 20 years now. So more than half my life I've actually been an Ohioan. So while at Denison, I met my wife, Joey, who was from Zanesville. And so when I graduated, we actually had dated all through college, all 4 years. So it was a real relationship by the end of that. And so I came here with all intents of marrying her, and we did that in 2003. When I got here, I was working for a local community bank. Did that for 6 years, and then in 2008, left there, and Joey and I purchased a local coffee shop, if you remember the Java House, which sat in Buchanan Square on Maple. We owned that for 3 years, from 2008 through 2010, the end of 2010. About the same time we bought the coffee shop, I also started dabbling in photography. And when the Java House became something that we could just no longer keep going, closed that and doubled down on the photography business. And I've done that professionally for a decade now, actually over a decade. In the last few years, I have transitioned that business into a full-blown media company. And so now professionally, I spend my time making social media content, videos similar to this one, producing podcasts, short films, all the video and photo content that companies need to run a social media campaign. In terms of church life, when I got here in 2001, we started leading a youth group with my wife at her church, a small Methodist church that she grew up in. It was the church we were married in. After doing that for a while, I was hired as a worship director at another local Methodist church, and did that for several years. That was a challenge. That was an attempt to change the worship style. So I was brought in to move from traditional organ music to a blended service that had both sort of the traditional aspects as well as more contemporary, modern worship, not unlike what is going on right now at Immanuel. So I fully understand the things that Caleb and the team are going through and some of the challenges that they're facing trying to create something that jives together. It can be a difficult thing to try to get music that works together and doesn't feel disjointed, but while at the same time honoring both of those styles. And then it was It was while we had the Java House. One of the reasons we bought the Java House was an attempt to create a community, particularly a Christian community, around that business, but more importantly, like a space, a place. So we bought the Java House to be the place where we could create a community of people who wanted to learn about Jesus, and that worked. And we ended up planning a church as a result of that. While I was a worship pastor for one church, we planted a second worshiping congregation alongside that. It met in the same building in the evenings. And through that process, I ended up enrolling in seminary, entered the candidacy process for the United Methodist Church, became a licensed pastor in the Methodist Church, and did that for a number of years. And there are a number of reasons that swirled around and sort of came together that made that something that we needed to stop in 2014. Not the least of which is we had our eldest daughter, Andy. She was born in 2012, and then in 2014, our first set of twins arrived. And at the time, I was doing that bivocationally. I wasn't actually getting paid to be a pastor. And as that became a much more significant drain on my time, I had to make decisions, and one of them was that being a pastor, at least in that capacity, wasn't something that I could do. Since then, we've had a second set of twins, so we have 5 children. And we have a 7-year-old, 2 5-year-olds, and 2 3-year-olds. And as you can imagine, life is pretty hectic for us, especially for my wife, who takes care of them, and through this has been teaching them. She has a master's degree in education, so she's well equipped to do that, but managing all 5 of them at once is certainly difficult. So that's a quick rundown of sort of my background, where I came from, what I've been doing since coming to Zanesville, and how it's sort of led me to this opportunity. Well, I guess I haven't mentioned this opportunity kind of came along at a perfect time. Well, for a while now, I have been feeling the pull back to formal ministry. That's always been something that I've known that I've been put here to do. And so the question has just sort of been, when is the right time to make that happen again? Assuming I probably had I didn't finish my seminary degree, so I was assuming I had lost my credits, and on a whim, got in contact with the academic dean at the school to ask if I had in fact, and it turns out that I had not. So I had made the decision to re-enroll to finish that degree. And then within days of making that decision, I was contacted by Bob at Immanuel, the head of the consistory, to talk about whether or not I would be willing to help out, or in what capacity I would be willing to help out as Mitch left and the church looked for a new pastor. And that conversation just evolved to the point where here we are, and I'll be stepping in to do the teaching on a part-time basis, about half-time. And so it's just all sort of in the same way. It's sort of a bunch of events came together to make it so that I had to step out for a while. A whole host of events have sort of come together at the right time to make it possible to step back into it. And so here we are. I'm probably gonna do a couple different of these videos. So be another one coming here soon to talk about some other issues and topics that you might find interesting. But if you have any particular questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments. You can message me personally, or you can message the church's Facebook page. One of the things that I will hope to be doing soon is setting up times to talk to each of you, whether that be over the phone or FaceTime, or however you're most comfortable doing that. One of the things I definitely want to do is begin to develop relationships with you all, allow you to get to know me beyond just videos like this, and to learn your stories. So be information coming about how we're going to go about doing that. So look for that. Outside of that, I'm glad to be here. Hopefully things go as smoothly as possible, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video.